Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Small Talk podcast. My name is Katie Mucci, and I will be your host all year long. During this podcast, we pair up current and former student athletes to talk about their Division III experience. We get into everything from the best hangout spots on campus, funny road stories, team traditions, and more. Thanks for tuning in this week, and now we'll welcome our guests from Calvin University, Nicholas Henz and Dr. Wiebe Boer.
I'm Nicholas Henz. I'm a junior at Calvin University on the track and cross country team, and I'm studying civil and environmental energy engineering.
And I'm Dr. Wiebe Boer. I ran cross country and track at Calvin from 92 to 96, and I'm now currently the president of Calvin University.
So first, we're going to start on campus. What are the team's hangout spots? Maybe what are some favorite places to eat, where the team gets together? Talk about that.
So, as an athlete, we obviously didn't have that much time to hang out. But when we did hang out, there was a particular Italian restaurant called Pietro's, near campus, which, at the time seemed incredibly expensive. And now is actually kind of like I realize it's more like a discount place, actually. So Nick, is that where you guys still hang out?
I've gone there once, actually, but typically we'll go to Wolfgang's after a long run, or we go to our coach's ice cream shop just down the road, the Village Cone Shop.
Brian Deemer owns that?
Rick Oddie.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Okay.
It's one of his many jobs, and we love supporting locals, so that ice cream shop is really fun to go to in the summer and fall.
Oh, wow. We weren't allowed to eat ice cream when we were running. And then I guess the other question was the favorite place to hang out on campus. So, in our time, I guess it was Johnny's, which may still be the same thing.
We've actually migrated over to the main floor of the library. We typically have one of those tables kind of taken over for an entire day.
With the team members.
And someone just always holds a spot. Like, I feel like we always have one table just to our team.
And do you actually get any studying done?
Sometimes.
Okay. All right, good. That's why your grades are so high still.
Yeah.
All right.
Now let's go on the road and see if the travel has changed at all. Are you busing or flying to your meets? How many roommates do you have on the road? What kind of food are you getting? Is the coach treating you well? Talk about all of that.
Yeah. So when Calvin actually had its own buses at the time. I don't think we have that anymore. But so any kind of long trip, we would go by bus. But the two times I did go to nationals, they were far enough away. Once it was in Iowa, the other time it was in Pennsylvania. And so we flew. And so obviously for some members of our team, it was actually the first time in their life that they'd gone on a plane. But normally it was buses, long trips, and the bus rides were, really fun, particularly after the race, particularly after a really good race. The bus ride on the way to the race was often a little more quiet as everyone was kind of to themselves, thinking their way through what we had to do, in the next couple of hours. The food, it was always a very tight budget. I think the only time the coaches splurged a little was when we would maybe have a race in Wisconsin or something, and then Chicago was halfway back. I don't know if you still do this, and then we would go to one of the kind of famous Chicago pizza places.
Yep.
And then the people on the team who were really serious about their diet and all that would scrape off all the pizza and just eat the crust, I think, if I remember correctly. And then the rest of us would just say look, come on, we worked hard. We're going to eat a lot. So yeah. What is it like now?
So the last 2 years, nationals for cross country has been within driving distance. Freshman year for me was in Louisville. So that's within bus distance. So we take coach buses. And then some of those trips are really quiet on the way down. There's only the men's and women's varsity team. So there's about 20 people on the bus, and we're all spread out, really quiet. And then the way back, music, everything. Everyone's really excited. End of the season.
Yeah.
This year we're in Pennsylvania, so we might fly. I'm not sure. But yeah, last year was in Lansing, so it was basically a
home meet
for us. And with the food, it changes depending on the amount of people at the meet and amount of people traveling for sure. There's been some where we've broke the budget and had splurged, and a lot of us know how to eat well, so
okay, good.
We enjoy it. Yeah.
Thinking academics now, you shared your majors earlier and they aren't the same, but do you guys have any overlap with classes you took or maybe professors that were there?
Yeah, so I studied history. I did my undergraduate degree here in history with a minor in political science. Many great profs that I had, but almost all of those profs are now retired. So like Ed Van Clay, Dale Van Clay, Randall Jelks, Bob DeVries, Corwin Smith, and so on. So basically every single one of the profs I had when I was here are now retired, because I guess I'm so old. And so I don't know if we had any overlap. I mean, there would have been some of the core courses because we're a liberal arts school. So, even if you're an engineer like Nick, you would still have to take some Bible classes or some philosophy or history, depending on what he chooses. So there may have been some overlap on the actual courses, but probably not the professors. But what are you studying?
So I am planning on studying a double engineering major. I want to do civil and environmental and energy and sustainability engineering. They overlap about 90% of the classes. So if I'm able to pick up the last few, I can get both. And with the current shifting of the engineering field, I think it'd be good to forward think and get both of those. So yeah, obviously we won't have a lot of major based focus classes that are very overlapped, but like you said, the core classes probably took some very similar ones that are still in today's Calvin's core.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's story time now. Can you share your funniest or craziest but appropriate story with your teammates or your time on the team?
Appropriate. Okay, we only have appropriate stories. We're a very focused university here. So no, can I share more than one?
Definitely.
Okay. So I'm actually going to I'll share three, but I'll do them quickly. So one was we used to do spring break trips down to Gulf Shores, Alabama. Do you guys still do those?
I have not been on one.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, COVID and all that.
Yeah.
I guess slowed it down. Yeah. So and then on the way down, we would actually stop at Auburn University and actually run a race there. And so when I first came to Calvin, I did secondary school in Nigeria. So I was not used to kind of the American way of training and all that. And so my freshman cross country year didn't go that well because I was just kind of ramping up. I didn't know that you needed to train in the summer, for example. I thought you just showed up and started. But then it was at that track meet in Auburn that I really made a breakthrough and beat my high school 5,000 meter record by a minute and a half in one race. And so that was obviously incredibly satisfying, but also just the camaraderie of the whole team driving down there, spending hours in the bus. And then kind of everyone, a number of us who were in our freshman year actually had big breakthroughs in that race and then, kind of had, careers together for the next couple of years. So that was one. Another was one that was more disappointing. It was my sophomore year when I had made my breakthrough and I was now on the varsity team. And we went to Iowa for nationals. And the Grinnell College was the host, and they somehow found the only hill in Iowa and built the course around that hill. But what happened is we were actually the fourth ranked team. And interestingly, Nick's dad was at North Central was at North Central College. And that was when North Central was absolutely dominating Division III. And your dad was what? Fifth man. Okay. So I was third man at Calvin.
Overall, I believe.
Fifth overall. Okay. So, and I was third man at Calvin. But that year at nationals, so first of all, we were ranked fourth, but then our fourth man, Brad Haverkamp, got a bad stomach problem. So our eighth man had to drive overnight to Iowa from Grand Rapids. And then in the morning, Brad said, look, I'm going to try and run. But then he just wasn't himself. And so, he placed probably, 50, 60 places further behind than he would. And so we missed fourth place and a trophy. I don't know if fourth place still gets a trophy.
Not as of this year.
Oh, not out of this year. But we missed fourth place by like 4 points. And obviously if Brad hadn't been ill. But interestingly, that race then, Nick's dad was fifth overall and North Central almost swept. So it's good to have you on our side now. So obviously that was very disappointing and we got so close, but it was, that night that a bunch of us actually went to a theater in Iowa and watched the movie Cool Runnings about the Jamaican bobsled team. And actually kind of the core message of that movie was about, winning or losing. It's actually about your character, right? That matters, not whether you win or lose. So it was a bit of one of those things where you're like, okay, fine, this was really difficult, really hard. But in the end of the day, we did our best, and we came through with good character. And then the final one actually then connects Nick and I. So now my first time as president, I attended nationals in Lansing, and then actually met his dad again, and then was really excited to hear that, Nick's dad had so much respect for our program that, even though he was this absolute star at North Central and they won all these national championships, he decided to send his son, Nick, to run with us at Calvin. And it was just kind of this great reunion, that 25 years ago, I was always just seeing his back. And now this time it was his son that was here actually running for us and wearing the Calvin jersey. So it just shows how these connections can be intergenerational, and it's absolutely amazing to have you on our team.
Thanks. Yeah, so the first story that I was actually going to tell was nationals just last year in Lansing. Probably the best race of my life and an experience I will never forget. That whole week we looked at the forecast and we saw the conditions and we knew it was going to be something to remember. I believe on the day it was 11 degrees real temp and about 10 inches of snow on the ground, and they were plowing the golf course to get it. And I believe a trend that I've been noticing is I run the best in the most adverse conditions, and had a really good race. Ended up almost 200 places better than my freshman year, and was a few seconds shy of All-American, but that was not even something I thought was going to be possible that day. And I remember coming to the finishing chute, and we were freezing cold, but it didn't matter because we had 150 Calvin fans were lining the fence, just screaming. It was amazing.
Yeah, Nick ran out of his mind in that race. I remember we were incredibly proud of you.
Thanks. Yeah, and the other one, the other memory that I have is that the teammate Will Hoffman and I, we went, the whole team went down to a meet at Ohio Wesleyan in early April, and it was my freshman year. It was my first breakout track race that I had, and we were in the 5K. It was 40 degrees, and we had seen 3 seasons of weather that day. It's rainy, sunny, and then during the start of our race, it actually started snowing. And Will and I had agreed to take turns running 15 flat pace for 800 each of us. And then at the 2-mile mark, I noticed he was hurting a little bit. I just, no matter what, I don't care if he beats me in the end. I just took the front, and we just stuck to the pace. And then we both were side by side out sprinting, trying to out sprint each other at the end, because we ended up both running a few seconds under 15, and that was a 50-second PR for me in the 5K.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, my time, my freshman year was more like 15:30. So
yeah, that's a race I'll remember for a while.
Amazing.
Being that you're both from the same program and the men's cross country team, does the team have any rituals or superstitions that have maybe existed alongside the program that you both know about?
So I guess I'll start. Do you still remember Pig Loop? Did you guys do that back then? Yeah, so I guess that ritual started once you left. I don't know if there was any loops that you guys had around town that you had named. I wonder if there are any similar ones now. No? Yeah, I
So what's the Pig Loop?
It's a 4-mile loop we do before every race.
Okay.
And we have to there's a bronze pig just up the road in the neighborhood.
Okay. Is it at a restaurant?
It's at a residence.
Someone's residence has a bronze pig?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's like the size of this couch, and
okay.
We all go up to it, and we'll have one person sit on it, and then they'll have a PR.
Oh, wow.
And it's PR pig, and it's what we call it.
Okay. And it works every time?
From what I know, yeah.
From what you know, okay. Did you do that the day before you ran that race in Ohio?
I can't remember which time it was my turn.
Okay. And does the owner of the pig know what you guys are doing there?
We just found out in May from a neighbor that the owner thinks it's the coolest thing.
Okay.
They'll see us on some Friday or Thursday afternoons, come run up in a big group, and they said the name is Ima. It was drove in from Colorado.
Okay. All right. So they haven't called the cops on you or anything?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, no, we didn't really have any pre-race rituals like that. So, yeah.
I mean, pasta dinner.
Pasta dinner, yeah. That was it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to zoom out a little bit now and talk about Division III. What does it mean to you to be or to have been a Division III student athlete?
Okay, well, yeah, I'll start with that since it was I did it obviously a lot longer ago. It was such an important part of my experience at Calvin. To be honest, I probably would not have stayed at Calvin if it wasn't for Brian Deemer, who was our coach then, and Al Hoekstra, and just the entire team. My captain my freshman year was Rich Church. Actually, Rich, Brian, and I were all together actually on campus yesterday. These are friendships that have lasted now 25, 30 years. I came, as I said earlier, I came to Calvin from Nigeria, so I did not have a big community here. And the cross country team kind of became my community. And it also, in addition to just the camaraderie, but it also just taught so much discipline. And that's something that I still have in my life today. So, as I grew up in an environment where we didn't have snow and all that, and, so I had to come here and learn how to run through blizzards and snowstorms and all that. And it certainly builds your character. And so that discipline, that camaraderie and all that I had from those days is still very much, a part of my life and all that. But the other part of it too was the fact that we were Division III meant that there was some pressure that was on. We weren't on scholarships, right? In the end of the day, it was clear that our priority was our academics, right? I remember, I guess it must have been my junior year, there was a race I had to miss because I was taking the qualifying exams to apply for grad school. And, I would imagine if I was in a D1 or D2 program on scholarship, I would have been told, sorry, you gotta run the race. I mean, I was third or fourth man. But of course our coaches were like, yeah, obviously you have to go do that first. That's the priority. And then I actually ran with the kind of second team at a different race, so that I could do the exam, and then the someone else that took my place. So that was just an example of the difference, that it was incredibly important to us, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of training and discipline, character, but it was still kind of in the right place, with academics first and then the athletics after that. And I think that's just what's so amazing about Division III, and I still see that in our athletes now. Across our over 20 programs, men and women, our average athlete's GPA is actually higher than the school average GPA. And I see the same thing with our coaches, that it's not just about winning the trophy, but it's also about being, also excellent in the classroom, being leaders. For us, we're a faith-based institution, so it's also about faith formation and Christian character as well. But it's all kind of done in the right order, right? And I think in other divisions, that's harder to do. So what's your experience, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, Brian Deemer was one of the main reasons I chose to come to Calvin, and just the camaraderie that this brotherhood in Christ that our team has created over the last couple of years, and I'm sure it's gone beyond that. From what I've experienced, it's just been such a good example of how to discipline and teach yourself how to manage yourself all the time that it takes to do both academics and athletics, because we all chose to do this, and that's why everyone who shows up to practice cares about it all this, like, so much, because none of them are getting paid to be there.
Yeah.
We're all there because we love the sport, and we love running with each other, and it's just been a awesome couple of years. I'm excited for 2 more. I through high school thought that D1 was where I would end up, and that was just my big dreams and aspirations. And then I think COVID was a good thing for me, and it woke me up to the idea of looking for a community of people who were all in it the same and weren't there to compete against each other. And that's been a huge thing that I found once I came here.
And actually, one thing I should mention is there's a tradition from when I was here that still continues. And even though Brian Deemer has now retired, our men's cross country team has won our conference, the MIAA. Is it 35 years in a row now? 35 years. So since I was here all the way till now, Nick's team, we've won every championship for 35 years. So pretty amazing streak. I think it's one of the longest standing streaks in college athletics, probably at any division.
Yeah, it's top 5, I believe.
Oh, it's top 5. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for keeping on the tradition.
Gonna keep doing our best to keep it up.
Yeah.
All right, and I've got one last question for you. This podcast, as you know, is one of the ways we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Division III this year. We know what Division III has become in the last half century. We're there. But when you think about the future, what do you think about for Division III, and what do you see? What do you hope to see for the future of this division?
I think Division III is the next big division when it comes to showing what it takes to be a student athlete. And as we've seen in the last couple of years of national qualifying and stuff, Division III is fastly approaching D1 qualifying times. We have Division III athletes running in national U.S. championships more and more each year. And I think in the next decade, we could see the overall competitiveness of Division III becoming equivalent or even better than D1 because of the inspiring drive that everyone has, that they want to be involved. And I hope that momentum continues.
What he said. But I'm really glad to hear that the sort of competitiveness of D3 is rising. I've obviously seen that in other sports. In my first year as president here, our soccer teams are amazing, men and women. Our basketball teams are amazing. And it's good to see it's Division III is really healthy. Again, because of the fact that it's academics first and then athletics. And there's a lot of things going on in NCAA that are really, in the higher divisions that aren't really going to affect us because of the way that sports and academics are currently balanced. And I do see that should be the future of college athletics. In the end, we're universities. The United States is the only country in the world, as far as I know, where in many universities, it seems like sports come before the classroom. And I'm really proud to be the president of a school where that, even though we have excellent athletes on the track, on the field, on the courts, etc., we have even better athletes in the classroom. And I think that's the way that it should be. And I'm very proud of our tradition.
Thank you two so much for joining us today. I had a blast hearing about where this program has been, where it is now. Some great stories from both of you, and I wish you all the best as we get through this next year. To everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in for this first episode of the Small Talk podcast. We'll be posting new episodes every Thursday. You can find us on social media at NCAA D3, that is NCAA DIII, or visit nca.org/DIII50 for more information on the anniversary. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.